My name is Richard, and this is If You Only Knew. Before we get into today's topic, I played the video before the intro to show that many are taking note of the reduced police force. Normally, this area is heavily laden with police presence on every street. In fact, if you look into the distance, you can actually even see that there's a sign for a police station in the background. Now, as a resident, I have seen these guys many times before in my own neighborhood, but never in Times Square and not in front of a police station. I do want to clarify that aside of these being street illegal dirt bikes and blocking traffic, I don't really think they're doing any serious harm. It's more of a spectacle to watch them than anything, but I imagine that there's plenty of others who are not harmless that are taking notice. Now, for those of you that did not know this, New York City and New York State don't really uphold your Second Amendment rights. A permit allows you to carry a handgun to and from the range, but that's about it. Meanwhile, in other states, gun sales are at an all-time high. As a resident, I sure hope it doesn't come to this. Georgia governor called in the National Guard, which means that things are definitely out of hand in Georgia. Now let's get into the headlines. Let's get started. Trump officially ordered that the USA leave the World Health Organization, which follows the strong letter he issued about a month ago requesting major changes that they did not, facilitating making the process easier to walk away from. But we know that this has been one of a series of relationships that has been ended by Trump that has been cut off from the globalists. Jack Posobiec tweeted this list reminding us of the progress that Trump's made so far. However, despite the departure, the USA did award Novavaccine with $1.4 billion for a COVID vaccine that was originally developed by SETI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness International, which was originally funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So this is actually a Bill Gates vaccine. But Trump does have to play the vaccine card for the mainstream media narrative. But he did announce the vaccines were not mandatory. We'll see more. Now, we're on the same topic of health and vaccines. Let's take a look at this article and imagine what it says about the average person in the UK. Sounds like they know about Bill Gates, and it sounds like they also want nothing to do with him or his plan to vaccinate or chip the planet. Next, here's an article from Blaze pointing out the inevitable lowering death count. Once it reaches a certain point, by the CDC definition, it's no longer considered an epidemic, which means that the deep state is going to need to stir fear in any way they can, which we can see that they already are with new numbers. Now, if you watch X22 report, you know that there's a new procedure for counting the infected and the cases all together. Here's the graphic where you can see one individual, and the assumption is made that contact from this individual resulted in a total larger number, regardless of the precautions taken. The bottom line is that until the election, we can expect this to continue. In fact, we heard last week that of some new disease, the return of the swine flu, and this week it's the bubonic plague. Why? Well, probably because they're struggling to maintain the narrative as it is. In fact, a story was released today showing the successful treatment of a patient and curing him of HIV, but it's unlikely that you're going to get more of this story in the media's attention for the simple reason that it doesn't fit their narrative. I would even guess that there will be stories about how the virus will mutate and all kinds of stories about things that scientists weren't expecting to learn about the virus or other dramatic twists. Just remember that Trump and the Patriots, they knew all of this. They knew all of it. The Patriots knew the playbook, and the Patriots are in control. Trump talked about therapeutics, and we now have 3 types of medicines to treat COVID. In other words, no matter what numbers or scary findings will come up, there's options. And most importantly, the death rate has gone down. And if no one is dying from it, then it's not a deadly disease. Next, let's look at this article about a homemade torture chamber found. By the way, you're not crazy. This reminds you of the movie Hostel, in which this would appear consistent, except that we know that Epstein had the same dentistry chair. Could this serve another purpose other than torture, extraction? More to the point, is this to do with adrenochrome? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Next, I want to share this article where the New York Attorney General is calling out BLM and ordering them to cease and desist fundraising in New York State. Now, this is the Daily Wire, and I won't expect to see this run in the mainstream media. But as you can see, it's all going to become harder and harder for BLM to operate. And by that, I mean that the narrative is also struggling. Recently, there was footage of an all-black militia walking through the mountains and challenging a supposed white militia to a fight. Now, fortunately, Patriots Everywhere took a closer look, and this is one of 2 memes I found where the Patriots examined individuals from this march and pointed out that some of these folks had sort of newbie, novice mistakes, and that some of these people don't know what they're doing. So what is this really about? Why is BLM marching this militia around? Could they be trying to start a civil war? Well, I believe so. People are noticing this in other strange patterns. People are noticing that the Frederick Douglass statue was removed. Frederick Douglass, who was an abolitionist. Why? Well, because they're removing history, and the silent majority are noticing. People are also noticing that some of the violent acts being committed are black on black crime, but it's becoming also obvious that there's a conscious effort on the mainstream media's part to focus on white on black crime to fit their narrative. The people are noticing this. They notice the selective outrage. Speaking of selective outrage, how many protesters wear Nike sneakers? Nike, who was in the media recently for their $790 million loss, resulting in layoffs. Many will attribute this to the boycotting of their products for support of Colin Kaepernick, who is, by the way, going to be an upcoming spokesperson for Disney on top of the spokesperson deal with Nike, who we all know utilizes sweatshop labor while at the same time virtue signaling through the discontinuing of the sales of Redskin merchandise. I, for one, am looking forward to seeing more sneaker companies made in the USA instead of China. Now, there are topics I won't have time to address, but how could I not include Kanye in his recent decision to run for president? Is he running? Yes. What's more important to ask is, does this benefit the president or does it hurt the president? And I do believe the answer is it benefits the president. Kanye would run as independent, which would sway left-oriented voters from Biden. Trump supporters are loyal, but Biden hasn't really sold anyone. These are the same people that don't really want to vote for Trump, but now have an option not to vote for Biden. I do believe the deep state is panicking. Does anybody believe that Kanye will really defeat Trump? I don't think so. But I do think he's ready and willing to pull this off. I do believe that maybe the POTUS is in on this, and that maybe right now the deep state is in panic mode. Here's a weird story that I wanted to present for your consideration. Why is Tom Hanks saying this? Doesn't this sound like, as they say, caca del toro or BS? Recently, there's been videos that found obvious glitches in the Tom Hanks footage from his appearance on Saturday Night Live. Both of these ideas lend themselves to the possibility that maybe Mr. Hanks isn't at his home. Maybe he's at prison. But I also want to highlight that suddenly a bunch of celebrities have taken career hiatuses. Oprah wants to take a year off because her dog supposedly has COVID. Jimmy Kimmel retired before being shamed for blackface. Ellen is taking a break. Piers Morgan is now also retired. Now, obviously, people do take breaks and they do retire, but the fact of the matter is that we know that something else is about to unfold, which brings me to today's topic of Ghislaine Maxwell. First off, let's talk about the fact that what we've all been told about Giz with being just arrested is likely a cover story to conceal an ongoing investigation that probably started months back. We recall with the firing of Berman, the attorney with full jurisdiction over the Epstein evidence, also, by the way, who had the evidence for the Wiener laptop, Clinton Foundation, and Ukraine investigations. This allowed for materials to become public, but the investigation could have started back further. By the way, do you recall a perp walk? You know, the famous perp walk when someone gets arrested? You never saw that, did you? Or how about a mugshot? No, you didn't see that either. You didn't see either of these two standard things that are used ceremoniously to announce when someone has been arrested. Look at the bigger picture also. The president tweeted about the draining of the swamp within a certain time frame, between 90 to 120 days, and then we get this headline about Ghislaine Maxwell. We're also hearing about celebrities retiring and taking a break. Based on the information we have from the Patriots, we have an idea of what's coming next, and that we may see charges for crimes against humanity. But let's take a step back and look at the life of Maxwell, who met and dated Epstein in the 90s and continued to associate with Epstein until his arrest in 2008. By the way, part of that plea deal that Epstein took did grant immunity to any co-conspirators, but the result has still been 35 years worth of charges initially, while reports of additional victims are also flooding in. Maxwell has also been able to somehow assume the title of socialite from her TED Talks or from her work through Terramar Project, an organization that Ghislaine is president and founder, as well as being the president of a company called LMAX. Maxwell got her bachelor's and master's from Oxford University. Maxwell is also, by the way, a licensed helicopter pilot, a certified EMT, and licensed as a deep worker submersible pilot. And if that doesn't strike you as completely suspicious and shifty, you probably guess that this is not a coincidence, and this is probably all intentional to facilitate their operation. We know that Maxwell directed orders to other lieutenants who worked under her to recruit young girls. Maxwell was in charge of recruitment for the operation in general, but Epstein and Maxwell, while they were dating, Maxwell took over the staffing and running of the Epstein households and placed help wanted ads to lure the young girls. Maxwell would charm her victims, taking them shopping, to a movie, and if they were not cooperative, Maxwell would threaten to keep the girls' passports, as well as a variety of other tactics to control the victims. Also, Maxwell was not just a facilitator, she was a participant. She would partake in the abuses along with Epstein. When Epstein was arrested, Maxwell disappeared, with the exception of a few strange photos, like the one we all saw of her at an In-N-Out burger that many believe was fake, but put into the media on purpose. Again, I do believe that she was arrested earlier and was already cooperating with the authorities. Essentially, my bottom line is that don't believe what you're about to read in the media just yet. There's been articles talking about Maxwell being taken into special cells for COVID, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and also we know this is the same facility that Epstein was sent to, but we also know that Maxwell has what's called a dead man's trigger, in which case, in the event of her death, the collection of materials falls into the wrong hands. So essentially, they want her alive, even though they don't want her to be naming names. What I would do is go get your popcorn. Now, the appearance for Maxwell to start naming names starts on the 14th. Didn't we see recently posts about something happening maybe on the 13th? I'm wondering if this could be another event before Maxwell appears to distract the public. Maybe. Check out this weird footage from China that is puzzling the locals. Could this be a test? It's just a theory, but we've all seen this whale hologram before. Now combine that with sound and make it bigger, and you could pull off probably just about anything. Now, whatever does end up happening, we do know it's going to be biblical, and that while the deep state has unveiled most of their assets, we have yet to begin to unleash our assets. Remember that there's all these investigations taking place that will likely be disclosed before the election. Folks, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Channel is being censored and all the videos being hidden. By the way, this is what censorship looks like. This means that the videos I work very hard on are being hidden at the bottom of YouTube. So I need your help to make sure that this stuff gets out there. Also, please follow the channel on the social media platforms. My name is Richard, and this is If You Only Knew.